This is Ball on Blast, part of the On Blast Podcast Network, available on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. If you like it, then subscribe and tell your friends. Holla.
Thank you. You're far too kind for tuning in once again to a little thing we like to call the Ball on Blast podcast. As always, my name is Sheldon Alexander. I'm joined by my dude, Mr. Andrew Webster. Webby, what is good?
Sheldon, you told me that you were pouring a glass of wine and sitting down. You got the football on. We're going to record. My question is, what are we drinking tonight? What kind of wine are we drinking?
Oh, some random like, hold on, no free promos right now.
Okay. No, I just want to know the grape. I want to know the grape. Like, are we a cab? Or are we drinking a Merlot? Or what are we doing here?
Hold on, let me peek over. It's a Merlot.
Okay, nice. That's fair. Right on. Now, do you know the country of origin? Or are we going Italian?
We're going local. We're supporting local business, you know?
Like your neighbor who drinks wine, or no, not that local.
My neighbor, that's the plug.
That's it.
He's got like a grow up going of wine.
Listen, if you haven't brewed your own beer or made your own wine, I can't tell you what I was doing in second and third year. We had like vintages, you know. The first time we did it, we didn't even put it into bottles. We just had the siphon going. We had the big bucket of wine that we made on the table, and then just passed around the siphon. In COVID times, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Can't do that anymore. But I mean, for now, that concludes this episode of Wine on Blast.
Yeah, Wine on Blast.
Tune in each and every week, though.
Who knows? It could be the spinoff. It could be the spinoff pod.
Who knows, right?
I'm down with a little red, you know, absolutely delicious.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Maybe that's how we'll get LeBron to come on the podcast, right?
Let's talk wine, LeBron. Yeah, hey, listen, we can talk, Chiantis, we can talk, Valpolicellos. We can do it all, man. It's all good.
Yes, Wine on Blast for sure. That's a thing. But coming up on this episode of Ball on Blast, we'll discuss Giannis not being focused on his contract right now, the two new teams being added to James Harden's wish list, who won the Russell Westbrook John Wall deal, KYRIE losing money, Paul George getting money, and the Clippers being the Clippers, and a little something special in Ball on Blast. That's a tease for you kids at home. But, of course, we start with the Toronto Raptors, and Raptors Twitter was buzzing as Open Gym, which is, I would say, like the Hard Knocks of the Toronto Raptors.
It's really well done. It's an awesome series, They put a lot of hard work into it, and it shows.
Yeah, it's an incredible doc series that's behind the scenes following the Toronto Raptors. They do amazing work. But in their most recent doc, which is called The Bubble, there was a scene in it where you go back to the 2013 draft, and the Raptors are trying to trade up to land Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, we knew about this, right? We've heard the stories of them trying to trade up, but seeing the video is really cool, and you're seeing a young Masai and young Bobby Webster working the phones, trying to make something happen. But Raptors Twitter was going crazy. Giannis is still trending right now in Canada because some people are trying to link this to some form of tampering or some form of a plot from the Raptors or some sign that Giannis is coming to Toronto. Craziness, of course, but how do you read this situation in terms of just seeing that video?
I mean, it's funny, right? Because we've been talking about tampering and like a lot of teams being accused or paying the price, whether it's a conspiracy we've thought of or it's something that was actually handed down. Mm-hmm. But this is a really interesting way of almost team-sanctioned tampering. Like this is listen, I don't think that this is a coincidence at all. This is a broadcast that's done by the team that that name is put out there right now. Like, because when this was being filmed and being put together, it's still, the Raptors saying that they have a chance to get Giannis, right?
Is that what they're saying?
I do. I really do. Why else? Why not? Why put it in there?
There's a lot of other footage that they could have used for sure. A lot of other examples they could have used to show like Bobby and Masai doing work way back when. I get that. But to me, I just think that's a reach. And maybe that's just because I'm coming from a place where I've vowed that I'm not going to, like, even if Giannis doesn't sign the max extension on the 21st, I'm not spending the year reading into every little thing Giannis says or what Masai says as a sign that he's coming. There's a full season in between that, and a lot can happen in between then to sway it. But I also don't get how a video of them trying to trade for Giannis on his draft night that we already knew about is a sign for anything. Like, I just think it's just, here's a flex. We're just flexing to show how big time we are. But it's not saying that Giannis is coming.
The sign of the connectivity between the star and this franchise. I really think, okay. I think that this is their play, and it's funny because they have, like, ever since Giannis kind of took this leap, we've been hearing that he's had this connection with Masai Ujiri pretty much throughout his career. Mm-hmm. So for the team to kind of play into that, I don't think it's a mistake or a coincidence.
So the Raptors trying to get Giannis, but not getting him. And in this moment of time right now, here's the thing. If there was some like backroom deal or the Raptors really think that they have him, isn't the best play just to shut up and let it play out?
I mean, probably, but that's not what a lot of teams are going to do.
No,
right?
But this is what I'm saying. So, like, if there was some telltale sign that they know or they feel really good about getting Giannis, what's the purpose in putting out this video as some like form of collusion or to draw attention to it? Like, just be quiet and don't do anything.
I don't think
exactly my point. Exactly my point. So if they don't know, Giannis doesn't know, what are we going crazy for? That's all I'm saying.
Trying to make your pitch, trying to get your
I hear
absolutely.
I hear you. But here's one thing that I will say about this Giannis situation that I still haven't had anyone fully explain to me here. Okay. So if the whole narrative that Giannis is coming to Toronto is based off of a relationship between Masai and Giannis's family, right? That's what we believe this whole thing is about. Then why aren't any of Giannis's brothers on the Raptors, right? Like, they're on the back end of the bench for the Bucks and the Lakers. Like, we got 905. We got a couple bench spots there. If this whole thing is about the relationship that Masai has with Giannis's family, why do we only want, like, I get why we would only want Giannis. I get that because he's great. But if this was about the family and all that, why wouldn't the family, when they have options of where to go, and Masai could be like, yeah, we'll throw you a bone and come play on our team?
See, I thought about this, and I think that you're right? Like any other team that had like a D League, where you could get these guys. But the thing about the Raptors and the 905 is that they really take pride in that D League team as a developmental team for the Raptors. Okay. So I think that they don't even want to waste the roster spots on the Black Sheep Antetokounmpo brothers. Although, hey, listen, there's only one champion in that family, and it ain't Giannis. It ain't Giannis.
I'm not gonna even take your bait there on the Giannis slander. I'm not gonna take the bait. Not gonna
over under rings for the Antetokounmpo brothers in their career 2.
Ooh, over. Yeah.
Well, because the Lakers are going to win this season, right?
I see what you did there. You trapped me into your game. I tried to avoid the game, and you still trapped me into it anyways. But let's continue with more Giannis talk, because Giannis spoke to the media this week. And, it was the first time, and everyone's waiting for it because, I was thinking, hey, his birthday's coming up, coincides with training camp. Maybe that makes sense for when he was waiting to sign. And no, that did not happen. So Giannis finally speaks to the media. And when asked about his contract situation, he said, quote, "Right now, I'm not focused on that. I know my agent and the Bucks ownership are focused on those decisions. I'm just trying to focus on myself and how I can get better, how I can help my teammates be better, and how I can be ready Saturday to play our first preseason game." Close quote. What do you make of these comments, Mr. Andrew Webster?
Well, this is funny because we talked about this last time when we were talking about Giannis, about the move to get Drew Holiday. Another brother playing in the NBA. Yes. Drew Holiday. And we were saying, how does Giannis not step in and be like, hey, listen, like, let's get this guy, let's not get that guy, let's give him this much,
Mhm.
if we can pay him this much, maybe I'm more likely to stick around. But when I read these quotes, and it's bad news for the Bucks, but he is not invested in this decision as much as if I were a Bucks fan, I'd want him to be.
Yeah, totally.
Because if I was a Bucks fan, I'd want him to be like, let's get this done. This is where I'm going to stay. But the whole, hey, I'm going to focus on me. Let's let the agent, and that's screaming red light, danger sign to me.
Definitely not a good look for the Bucks. And again, nothing other than Giannis signing is a good look for the Bucks, right? Like they could do whatever they want, but until he signs on the dotted line, that's the only thing that matters. But you can't be like, if you're Milwaukee, all you can do is be focused on making your team better, which we'll get to a couple rumors coming up on how maybe that's a thing. We'll get to that. But if you can, I think you got to not panic and not try to pressure him, because he knows the situation. He knows the dates. You just got to, if you're negotiating with his agent, lay everything on the line, which is pretty much whatever you want, which there was a funny back and forth in the press conference about, well, what's there to talk about? They're going to offer you whatever you want. And I forget what Giannis used as the example, but he's like, if I came in every morning and said I wanted this every morning, you think they'd give me that too? And the reporters are all like laughing. And it's like, yeah, they probably would actually, right? But it's a very weird situation. And I think it was Jackie McMullen I was watching on The Jump the other day who made a really good point about how we're viewing this. And we're forgetting that Giannis is a different person than LeBron or Kawhi or whatever other star we've seen go through this exact situation.
James
Harden, yes. And maybe we're viewing it in a different light, in the sense that Giannis, maybe he's like, okay, this deal's on the table, but maybe I don't want to take all this money and then change my mind. Right? Like maybe he'd feel really bad about signing the big contract and then in a year being like, oh, we lost again. I'm rattled. I'm pissed off. You know what? Maybe Miami is a better place. And he doesn't know. And he wants to take another year or take as long as he has to figure it out, because he can make up the $80 million in other ways. Right? Like there's a way you can do that if you play it out. You sign for 2 years, then you get the next extension for being like a 10-year vet after that. And you can make up the money. We just saw Anthony Davis do that. We've seen LeBron do that. So there's ways around it to make up the money. So even if, again, I keep saying, even if he doesn't sign at December 21st, like there's still a whole season. And the Bucks are still a good team. I know people are throwing so much shade at them as if like they're trash now and they're not one of the favorites to win the East, but reality check, Giannis is still an MVP candidate. Drew Holiday is still now their second best player, and he's really good. They're going to be decent. They're still going to be a good team.
They're going to be a good team. And you're right. They're going to be NBA champion odds-on favorites from the East, but they are trash. And honestly, the moves that they made.
I like Drew, man.
I like Drew. I like Drew Holiday too, but I don't think that he solves the problem that they had the last 2 years in the playoffs.
I mean, I can't stress enough how bad Eric Bledsoe was for them come playoff time.
For sure, but that offense is still built around.
Replacing that with Drew Holiday, I want to see it play. I can't wait for the season. The Bucks are one of the things I can't wait to see how this all plays out.
I think they're going to be an excellent regular season team. That's just what Coach Bud does, and he'll have the system, and he'll have the Bryson DeChambeau equation, how to revolutionise NBA basketball, and then they'll get to the playoffs. Yeah. Play will slow down. Possessions will get tougher. Buckets will get tougher. Yeah. And that team still does not – I guarantee you we're going to have games where at the end of the game they're still going to be relying on Chris Middleton to hit big shots, and he's going to clank them. I mean, that's just it. That's just it. That didn't change. We'll see. That didn't change. Ride.
I mean, the one lame part I will say about Giannis's teammates, I don't know if you saw this.
This is for his birthday. This is also a huge red flag when I read this.
So for Giannis's birthday, a bunch of his teammates got him pens as a joke to like, hey, here's a pen for your birthday, sign your contract, ha ha ha. And Giannis's response to this was, quote, at first I didn't get it. Chris came in and gave me a pen and I was like, what's this? But after thinking about it, I realized it was for me to sign the contract. I laughed at first, then I laughed the second time, and then I got like 20 pens. So it got a little bit old. I've got like 20 pens sitting in my locker. And me reading it, and if you watch Giannis say this,
Yeah.
he didn't seem too impressed by this. And I mean, it's kind of a lame bit too, right? Like after the first guy does it, it's kind of lame.
It's either he's got the corniest teammates in the NBA or ownership gave those guys the pens to give to Giannis. Either way, it's a bad look. Are lame. Yeah. Either way, it's a terrible look.
Speaking of terrible looks, that kind of seems like a perfect segue to the week of James Harden.
What do you mean terrible?
I mean,
what do you mean terrible?
Well, when one of the headlines
looked like he was having a great time.
Well, when one of the headlines is James Harden gave rapper Lil Baby $300,000 worth of gifts for his birthday, including a Prada bag filled with honey buns and $100,000 in cash.
So wait.
First off, I got to say, I love this league so much.
We got to break this down. Okay, so he got $300,000 in gifts. You got $100,000 in cash. Boom. Mm-hmm. You got $200,000 left to play with. How much is a Prada bag, Gucci bag, something like that? What is it, 50?
Not even going to pretend to know. Depends. There's levels to it. I'll say that. 100%. Right? You can go up on escalators for from 50 to 75 to I bet the six figures for sure. Yeah.
Sure. $100,000 bag. You still have $100,000 to play with. Does that mean he bought little baby $100,000 worth of honey buns?
I mean, in the video, you can see there's a lot of honey buns.
There's a lot of honey buns.
There's a lot of honey buns. I mean,
also one of my nicknames for my newborn daughter as well is Honey Bun. She is the Honey Bun. Yeah. I probably have to get her a Prada bag as well.
Yes, someday that will happen.
Someday that's going to come down. Yeah.
That's funny. So, Harden, the reason why this is so ridiculous is because while this was going on, the Rockets were getting ready for training camp. Harden opted to work out on his own at the University of Houston. And again, he attended rapper Lil Baby's birthday party in Atlanta and then spent a few nights in Vegas. Harden did not wear a mask at the birthday party or in the Vegas nightclubs.
And social events that you got to imagine the beard soaks up those droplets. That's
kind of gross. Right? Social events that violated the league's COVID-19 protocols. Now, I'm going to say this, okay? I'm going to try to separate these two things here and say, obviously, in the middle of a pandemic, partying in a club is pretty stupid.
Dumb.
Right? That's not even up for debate right now, right? But that's also the United States of America right now. Like, there are places where it doesn't seem like there's a pandemic going on at all. And that's dumb in all ways. So in no ways are we condoning partying in a pandemic, right?
We're very serious about the pandemic. Mask up, wash your hands, socially distance, lock down if you're locked down, and don't go to the club with no mask on.
I can't even fathom.
Don't go to the club.
Yeah, I can't even fathom a club right now. That's really weird. But I'll say this, right? We can separate the two things because in terms of a holdout or whatever you want to call this, wow, James Harden. Like, what's going on here? What do you make of this? Here's the thing.
He's got to test negative 7 days in a row. Mm-hmm. That's how much he doesn't want to be on the Houston Rockets. Yeah. Is that he's like, a week? All right, cool, whatever.
Yeah. He's just buying time. I don't know if you saw the video online, but I don't know what facility he was coming out of, but a dude pulls up in his car. And it's like a fan, and he I don't know. Have you seen this video? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So some guy rolls out his window, and he's recording on his phone. And James Harden's on the phone wearing a mask, like standing in the parking lot. And he's like, "Hey, James, yo, you gonna stay in Houston, man?" And Harden's not paying attention to him. And then some other team official like comes and steps in the way of the shot and starts like brushing the guy away. Like, come on, man, stop filming. And all you hear is a guy say, "Yo, who you, man? The police?" I died with laughter. I'm like, that video, you got to go watch that video because it's just so good. All you hear is, "Yo, you the police?"
It's amazing.
It's so good.
It's amazing.
And this
the best line.
Again, this league is amazing. Right?
Fucking awesome.
So again, James Harden is making a mockery of this, and obviously he's trying to force his way out. He's trying to buy time to allow them to make a trade. But while he's trying to make a trade, I have a question for you. Do you think that this is such a bad look, like such a bad hit to Harden's rep, what he's doing right now, that it's going to turn teams off from trying to get him?
No, not at all.
I don't think so.
Dude, this is the NBA, man. Like, the guys have done way, way worse and gotten paid.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
This is professional. I shouldn't even say this is the NBA. This is professional sports.
Yes.
Okay? This guy will drop 45 a game for you. Like, the Sixers are going to trade for you. Okay? Like, yeah. And he hasn't done anything illegal. He's just been what sports writers and NBA people are calling a jerk. And guess what? He's allowed to be. You know,
people are allowed to be jerks.
100%, man. And I don't think he's going to get punished by another team.
No, and I think here's the thing, right? Like, he's going to get punished maybe by the NBA for not following the COVID protocols as he should, because that's like very irresponsible and stupid to then expect to come around your teammates, right? And even just come around your family or anyone in particular, right? But that's a ridiculous part of this whole thing, the COVID aspect of it. In terms of the basketball side of it, it's, as you said, it's basketball. And talent is always going to win out. And make no mistake, James Harden is still one of the best players in the NBA. That's not up for debate. Probably the best scorer in the NBA, you know, and the only debate is because Kevin Durant's coming back to the league this year, right? But other than that, there's no way you're not going to tell me that there's 25 other teams at least that wouldn't get James Harden if they could. Of course they would do that.
100%.
And there's detractors that'll talk about his playoff failures and all that, but you still got to get there, right? Like, he still got to a conference finals and lost to the Warriors in game 7, like one of the greatest teams ever assembled. In game 7, they lost. So you still got to get there. And there's, again, 25 other teams that aren't there. So any one of those teams, you would take James Harden and have him flame out in the playoffs any day. But I find it funny just seeing some of the stuff on social media and people talking smack as if like any team wouldn't want James Harden. Of course you would, because you take the talent.
As a Sixers fan, I'm ready to trade Ben Simmons to get this guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just and if you're not, then you're not really that serious about winning basketball games.
Well, it's also you don't understand the NBA, because the NBA is about talent. You're not winning the championship unless you have top flight A-level talent.
Exactly.
And
he is top 3, top 4 in the league right now.
Totally. Shams was dropping bombs today, though, as you mentioned. So first off, James Harden, earlier today, Shams dropped that Harden has the Milwaukee Bucks and Miami Heat among his preferred trade destinations, along with the Philadelphia 76ers and Brooklyn Nets. Now, to further that, he also followed that up with the Rockets, saying that they have no interest in a trade for James Harden that doesn't include Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. Again, that's reported by Shams. Now, I mean, it's posturing by the Rockets. They're trying to drum up. But the whole fact that that's even in the conversation just tells you all they're trying to do is just up the best offer that they have.
So this news came a day or two after Daryl Morey said that he'd be very reluctant or wouldn't want to trade Embiid or Simmons to get Harden.
Yes.
So that's why I think that this news came out today
For sure.
of adding the Heat and the Bucks, and then the Rockets saying that they wouldn't take anything less than Durant or Kyrie, to kind of tell the Sixers that it's got to be Embiid or Simmons. That's what it sounds like to me. It's just Morey and the Rockets going back and forth. Now I'm a Sixers fan, and I've told you, I've been staunch in my views that Harden's going to be a Sixer, and I think this is the dance. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's cool, but that's just what it seems like to me right now.
No, I agree with you. I think that is the dance, and I think that, obviously this, you would assume that Shams is getting this from the James Harden side, right? Like, James Harden is adding 2 other teams to his preferred destination. Like, here's the thing. We already knew about the Brooklyn Nets, but we know that that's kind of a long shot, because Fertitta has already said that he wants stars, which makes sense as to why you would trade John Wall for Russ, which we'll get there, right? Like, and I mean that John Wall's not a star, but Fertitta just sees the name and he's like, I heard of that guy before. He used to be
Spencer
an
Dinwiddie and Jarrett Allen aren't stars.
But I'd have said this from the beginning. Give me the package of Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jarrett Allen, and I'm going to take that and your picks, and you can have James Harden, who's going to leave anyways, for someone not as good. So I'd rather get 3 dudes who are not as good and at least take the picks and try to make my team still decent.
Yeah, their backs are against the wall, and they've got him, and that's why you're seeing this posturing, because that Fertitta guy, he knows he has to get as much back as he can.
Yeah,
but he's got to get something back, because if he plays this game of chicken and loses, then he's going to be left with nothing, and Harden's just going to leave.
Well, James Harden's shown that he's going to just sit out or just do fuckery to like fail COVID tests and not play.
And not have to play. Exactly.
Yeah, like that's what we've seen right now. So, I mean, the other thing about Fertitta that I don't believe that he won't trade Harden to the Nets for anything other than Durant or Kyrie, because Durant and Kyrie are not even on the table. So the fact that you're still hearing the Nets,
they haven't played a game together yet.
No, but I'm saying like the fact that you're still hearing the Nets involved in the talks at all, it's just posturing. Plus, I don't believe anything that Tillman Fertitta says, because he's the same guy that also said this week, quote, "We've done nothing but gotten better in the offseason."
Well, anytime you can get a guy who hasn't played meaningful basketball in 3 years, you got to do it, right?
Like, what are you talking about? But anyways, I mean, of those teams, though, because do you buy this? Do you think this is legitimate, or it's just fake news to try to
Sixers
because Milwaukee has no assets,
right?
Like Milwaukee has no star that they're going to give up, and the Heat aren't giving up Jimmy or Bam
or Harrow and Robinson. They're not going to do that.
To be honest, I would do that.
Of course you would, but the Heat aren't going to do that because they're run by Pat. They're run by Pat Riley, man. Like,
I don't know if they're not going to, though.
This is we were talking about this too last time. James Harden does not seem like a Heat culture kind of guy.
I agree with that, but I would trust that my culture would fix James Harden. I would trust in that.
I don't think that he's broken. I just don't think that he's that kind of player.
No. I mean, in terms of fix him, in terms of this, he doesn't want to work hard. Oh, he's not conditioned well. Like, he doesn't fit into Heat culture. I feel like winning would make you fit into Heat culture, right? Like, if all of a sudden he got there and then they're not good, like, obviously everyone's looking at you, right? Because they were balling. Like, and think of, I heard people talking about Tyler Hero and do you want to give him, and it's like, did you just watch the NBA finals where they needed Tyler Hero to like get buckets and he couldn't do it because he's a rookie, and that's completely not fair. Now just think if you replace that with James Harden. Of course you do that.
For sure. But again, like, you always talk about like rational thinking and these kinds of things. I just don't think that Pat Riley and the Heat would be rational thinkers about this. You know, I don't think that they would.
Other way. I go the other way. I think Pat Riley loves stars. And if you can get stars, I trust that we'll be able to figure it out. But he just made a finals.
He just made a finals without a superstar.
Yeah, and lost to LeBron and Anthony Davis, who had 2 stars.
Yeah,
right?
Good point.
It gets you to a certain point, but at the end of the day, to get the chip, they just had more stars than he did. And if you can, and that's the other part of this. I think you're right. It is a smokescreen, because if Miami's not giving up, like, if Fertitta wants a star, Tyler Hero is not a star to be the centerpiece of the deal coming back. Chris Middleton is not the star of a deal coming back the other way. So I'm with you. I think it's the Sixers.
Hold on, you know who is? It's Ben Simmons.
Yeah,
it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. That does make the most sense.
And that way the Sixers, they wouldn't have to trade a draft pick either.
Ooh.
I don't think so.
I think they would. I think they would, because I bet you that's probably what the fight is. It's like, because if I'm giving you Ben Simmons, I'm also not giving you a first round pick.
Who's gonna like, who are they competing with?
Here's the thing. I don't think Fertitta understands that, like, what happens if this continues. Like, everyone keeps saying that, you know, the Rockets don't have to do it and they can wait it out. No, you can't. Like, do you want your whole season to just be a joke?
Yeah.
Right? How much of a joke would it be, Harden just playing whatever he wants and making a mockery of the whole thing? Like, why would you want that? So, I don't know. I would trade him. As I mentioned, I would trade him for Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, and however many picks it takes. I would do that trade. I would also trade him for Ben Simmons. For sure, without a doubt. Like, you can't really be thinking that John Wall and Boogie Cousins are magically going to just be healthy all of a sudden, and this is like your squad, right?
They've got zero Achilles. They've got 2 Achilles between them. Or no, I guess John Wall didn't tear his Achilles, but they've got 1 healthy knee between them, I should say.
I hear you. Speaking of John Wall, though,
okay,
other big NBA news is John Wall was traded for Russell Westbrook, or I guess it was John Wall and a protected first-round pick for Russell Westbrook. Let's start here. What's the most interesting part of this deal to you?
It's Westbrook going to the Wizards. It's Westbrook going to the Eastern Conference, 100%. John Wall, like I said, John Wall hasn't played meaningful basketball in almost 3 years. I love John Wall. I think he's when they went to that 7-game series with Boston, with the Wizards, like, there's no more entertaining player that I love watching on television. Have loved watching him since Kentucky. Like, I love his skill set. He's amazing, but right now you have no idea what you're getting. You have no idea. With Russell Westbrook, you're getting a guy who made third team All-NBA, and who's had 2 seasons of triple-doubles in the last 5 years, and a guy who's never played in the Eastern Conference. Putting him on a very interesting Washington team. A Washington team that as days go by, I'm talking myself into more and more. Now, did they overpay my guy Bertans?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. But this is a team with 2 dead-eye shooters in Beal and Bertans. They've got a really versatile big man in Thomas Bryant, who I really like. They've got a nice rookie who's going to be in his sophomore year in Hachimura. And now you've got a guy coming in, and you want to talk about a culture changer. We can talk about the ups and downs of Russell Westbrook. One thing he doesn't do is take a night off.
Yeah.
He's never a guy that you can accuse of not working hard and not competing. And for a guy like Beal, having that now in the locker room and that out on the court with him, I think the Wizards are going to be plucky. Well, very interesting in the Eastern Conference. I think last time on this pod I was talking about Atlanta, how I loved what Atlanta had done, and they might now, after I know that he's on the other side of the hill here with Westbrook, but having him in the Eastern Conference, man, he's going to be playing Detroit like 4 times a year, man. It's just going to be.
Welcome to my side of things here, Webby. I love this trade.
I saw you on Twitter too, getting into people, because you were like, "Oh man, like 6 seed, 7 seed." People like they'll be lucky if they make the playoffs. Like, I don't know. I understand that their coach isn't the best.
Cool, fair.
But man, I love Thomas Bryant. Like, I think he's so underrated.
Like, let's simplify this. Bradley Beal and Russ. Like, if you're ranking Eastern Conference players, like, how far down the list are Bradley Beal and Russ? Right? Like, there's a lot of things here that I love about what we're going to be able to see in the Eastern Conference, meaning like East Coast time as an old head that falls asleep early, and like last year waiting up for Lakers and Clippers games every night.
Move to the Mountain Time, man. Mountain Time, it's the ultimate, man. It's the Mountain Time for that.
I hear you, but in all seriousness, right? To me, the most interesting part of this trade was that there were people actually comparing Russell Westbrook and John Wall. And to me, that makes no sense at all. As you said, John Wall hasn't played in almost 2 years. John Wall hasn't played more than 42 games since the calendar year of 2017.
That's crazy.
We're about to go into 2021. My guy hasn't played more than 42 games. Meanwhile, in those same seasons, Russ went triple-double, and then averaged 27, 7, and 6, and made the All-NBA team this year. But I feel like, and there was an argument I had in the newsroom, okay? Everyone was on me, and obviously there's a lot of Raptors fans, so people are talking about Kyle Lowry. You'd rather have Kyle Lowry than Russell Westbrook. And I'm like, you guys think that because you're Raptors
That's
fans.
Crazy.
And I get it, but nobody actually thinks that Kyle Lowry is better than Russell Westbrook. right? Like, who thinks that? And their argument was Kyle Lowry's a way better leader and Russ is a bad teammate. And I'm like, who says that? This was my thing to them, right? I was like, who says that? Where's this narrative from? Because I only hear it from media people and stat nerds, because it's the NBA. If people don't like playing with you, you're going to hear about it, right? Like, dudes aren't shy about speaking about things that they don't like. And we've never heard anyone speak bad about it. We've only assumed that he's a bad teammate because people are like, oh, he's a ball hog. Or people have said, well, Kevin Durant didn't like playing with them. Well, guess what? Kevin Durant also left Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green because he didn't like playing with them anymore.
Draymond Green, I think.
No, but like, how much of a good judge of character is Kevin Durant then, right?
But you're totally right in Westbrook, because not only, like you say, the bad teammate thing I think is way overblown. Mm-hmm. But the reason that he made the All-NBA team this year was because he unlocked something in his game playing with the Rockets that I think he really needed to find, mm-hmm. Which was now being where he is in his career. His biggest attribute isn't to take three-pointers. And on that Rockets team, he found that he's most effective getting to the bucket, And if he can do that with this Warriors team or this Wizards team in the Eastern Conference and take that same role that he had on the Rockets, which was attack, like I say, he's got shooters on that team. Like, play into your strengths, Russ. And stepping into this system, he can really do that and continue the form that he's found. Like, he doesn't have to be Oklahoma City era Russell Westbrook in launching 8 3-pointers up a game. He doesn't have to take 1 or 2. If he wants to, sure. But here's the ball, man. Like, go and get it. And again, it's the Eastern Conference. It's going to take a miracle for them to miss the playoffs.
Exactly. It's like the same thing when we were talking about Drew Holiday a couple of pods ago, right? And the knock, people were saying, well, he hasn't been an all-star in a couple years. And it's like, do you know how hard it is to make the all-star team in the Western Conference
as a guard?
Right? You're talking Steph, Klay, you're talking Russ, you're talking Chris Paul,
Lillard.
Dame Lillard, right? Like, it's a gauntlet in the Western Conference. James Harden, wow, right? It's a gauntlet in the Western Conference in terms of making the All-Star game as a guard. And yet here's Russ, and people throw so much slander at this guy, and I'm like, I don't get it. But I feel like it's such a media narrative thing that once somebody says it, then that's the lens that we continue to view this person of. And I've always held it important. Hold on, I'm going to read something here, right? Because I've always held it important. I go by what players say, because there's something that media people will never understand, and that's in terms of sitting there and watching someone else on your team lead by example. And if you're playing with Russ and you know that that guy gives a fuck, right? Like, how does that not have an effect on you? You've already heard the whispers coming out of Wizards camp that he's changed the intensity level because of how hard he's playing in their freaking training camp. But I'm going to read a couple things here because these are from people who have played with Russell Westbrook to this narrative that Russ is a bad teammate. This from Paul George. He allowed me to be myself. He allowed me to be comfortable. I had one of my best career years I had playing alongside him. Russ is a heck of a teammate. That's actually facts, too. If you go back and look at the stats, the best year Paul George had was that year.
Third in the MVP that year.
Kevin Durant says, I thought the criticism was always unfair. With me leaving, they brought up this narrative that nobody likes him, and I always thought that was ignorant. That's from Kevin Durant. Carmelo Anthony. People don't understand his mindset. People kind of take that and put a wrong perspective on his mindset and what he is trying to accomplish. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, people are like, oh, he's a ball hog. It's like, no. He's going hard. One more. Okay. Enes Kanter, your boy. Russell Westbrook was the best player I've ever played with. He's not just the best player. He's the best teammate I've ever had off the court. Like,
I'll do you one better. I've got lots of friends in Oklahoma City. They're Thunder diehards.
Yeah.
Season ticket holders. Okay. When Durant, they can't even say Durant's name. Okay.
Yeah.
They burn them in effigy, like burning jerseys. They won't say one bad thing about Russell Westbrook. They know. They watched it. He was the engine of that team. He's the guy who came every night and gave it all on the floor for the team, for the fans, and for the win. Okay? That's what you're getting. And what happened with Russ is that he got the bad rap when Durant left, And then the stats nerds, the analytics, killed him on the MVP season. Killed him.
Yeah.
With
They're
the
like, oh, he's
triple-double
stat
stuff.
chasing. Yeah.
Killed him. And then those together, they made a bad perception of Russell Westbrook. But like I said, the one thing you can't take away from the guy is how much he cares about winning and about playing for the team. And
there's also
that's what I want on my team. I don't understand. I think we did this when he went to Houston, and we were like, this is a good move for Houston.
I think too what happens is people tell on themselves, right? And this is all sports. This is not just basketball, but are you actually watching the game or are you just watching stats? Because we're not supposed to use just one of the metrics. We're supposed to use both of them, right? And so because he's a bad shooter or a bad at shooting threes, then it's like, he's not good because he's a terrible shooter. And it's like, no. That just means he needs to alter his game. That's on a coach. That's on a game plan.
And that's the thing. Yes,
and people still crushed him. And my guy dealt with COVID in the bubble, right? It's not like he just played like trash. Like my guy got hurt in the bubble and got COVID. And people are just slandering this guy and thinking that he's the same as John Wall. Like what?
In fact, I think what he did is even more admirable. He took the weakness of his game, which was 3-point shooting, and he took it out. He said, "You're right. I don't need to be doing that. I can use my skills to help my team win in other ways." And man, I'm telling you, like 6th seed in the West.
We'll get to that closer to the season. We'll discuss like where we think teams will play out in each conference for sure. But I'm super excited to see how the Wizards are going to do. And I think that they have a very high ceiling. Like that was a great move for them because again, he changes your culture instantly. John Wall just wasn't there playing for the last however many years, but also just mindset wise, like that guy is going to play his ass off every single night. And as a fan, as a teammate, isn't that what you want? Like I would take a guy who isn't as good, but that I know is trying really, really hard. And the other part is when you watch playoff basketball, the year when they flamed out with Paul George was shook in that series as well. And Russ was just jacking up shots like crazy because he knew he had to do that because Paul George wasn't scoring.
And outside of those two, playoffs, and outside of those two, they didn't have anybody.
For sure. But if you watch last year's playoffs, remember, we were showing the highlights. I remember tweeting it out of the end of the game with the Rockets, and James Harden wanted nothing to do with the ball. And so what's Russ going to do? He's going to get the ball and he's going to jack. I want the guy that wants to smoke, right? So
absolutely.
I can't wait to see how this plays out. I think him and Bradley Beal, people are forgetting how good Bradley Beal actually is as well. I'm interested to see how that plays out for sure.
And just before we wrap this up, you got to just hope that John Wall comes back and has at least 80%, 75% of what he had before he got hurt that year. Because like I say, like
the league is better with John Wall. You don't want to see anybody injured. Of course not.
I just want to do the no look. He's great.
I want to see a Dougie, right?
Yeah,
bring the Dougie back. Why not?
That's it. I'm too sick of doing my my gritties now. I need to bring the Dougie back.
Fair enough. Someone who's not doing the Dougie or the gritty because he's probably mad that he's gotten fined is your man's Kyrie Irving. Brooklyn Nets continue to be the talk of the town. I mean, I didn't even do that on purpose because Kyrie's not talking. He actually got fined for not talking. But he and the Brooklyn Nets, respectively, were fined $25,000 each over Kyrie's refusal to speak to the media. So in case people aren't aware of what happened, while it was media day for all the teams, and you just had to get on a Zoom record and talk to the media, every single player, Kyrie decided that he wasn't going to do so. And instead, he released a statement saying, in part, quote, "Instead of speaking to the media today, I'm issuing this statement to ensure that my message is properly conveyed. I'm committed to show up to work every day, ready to have fun, compete, perform, and win a championship alongside my teammates and colleagues in the Nets organization." Close quote. That's only part of the message. It's a little longer. But end of the day, what did you think of Kyrie trying to not speak to the media and instead release his own statement?
If you're the Nets, you pay his fine. Okay. I'd rather him put out that statement than get a microphone in his face and say the wrong thing. No, I love Kyrie, and I think, honestly, during the bubble, what he did, again, for the women's game, online and things like that was really cool. I think that Kyrie's a really smart kid, and he's got a really good head on his shoulders. But, man, it just seems like if he does get in front of an open microphone, it doesn't necessarily always go right.
That's very true.
So if you are going to be – and he seems like somebody who's really interested in his legacy, in his message, and making sure that his word isn't taken out of context. And so doing this, and I've got no problem with it. Like, if you want to control your message, that's fine. I'm just here so I don't get fined, right? And the statement's fine, you know, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of blowback, because he's like Westbrook, man. He already gets a lot of blowback, and I'm sure this won't help, but I don't think it'll matter if they're really good. I think that if they get rolling, I think the only way that this would be bad for him or the Nets or even Durant is if they have some really big struggles and Kyrie's not talking to the media.
Here's my thing with Kyrie. I think Kyrie is actually smart. I think just sometimes he's too smart for his own good. Like he outsmarts himself and like plays chess, and he's making counter moves to things that haven't even happened yet. But you're right. You know, in a lot of the Kyrie slander, we forget a lot of the good things that he did, like say that he would try to put up the salary to any WNBA player that for whatever reason was going to lose money because of the pandemic. Like, that's incredible, right? Like, when you really think about that.
Having those Instagram live like watch parties for the WNBA games, I thought that was so cool. Like,
of course. But in this
because that was all his messaging. That wasn't something that he put out to the media in a press release or had press over. It was something that he could control. So I think that he thinks that that's very important.
But this is just going too far, right? Because, again, you're countering something that hasn't even happened yet, right? We know the media is going to ask you about James Harden, going to ask you about Steve Nash being the coach. You know they're going to ask you about, do you have championship expectations? Like, you know the 5 questions you're going to get for sure. Right? You know what they want you to say to get the clickbait, but I think you also know how you can just say it, be boring enough that it just ends, and that's it. Like, you can do that. You can suck that up for one day at least in training camp, and then it's not a story at all. Right? Instead, you made an even bigger deal by not speaking to the media and then turning this into like however many more days of storylines because you decided that you were going to not speak to the media but send out your own statement so that your message was properly conveyed.
Like, I like it.
Again,
he's playing chess when he should be. He's playing chess when he should be playing checkers. Usually it's the other way.
Too much.
But just too much, man. And it's like the Bucks, right? With Giannis, just doing too much.
The pens, yes, for sure. The Bucks should try to send some of the pens to Kyrie so he could sign his check,
or write more messages.
Exactly. Maybe they can send the pens to Paul George, who signed today. Breaking news, right? Signed a maximum contract extension with the Clippers that will guarantee him as much as $226 million over the next 5 years. There's been a lot of noise going on in Clipperland the past few weeks. But what's your reaction to this deal?
That's a lot of money for a guy who I thought we pretty much all had a consensus that he wasn't that good. Like, aren't we like 3 months removed from everybody being like, Paul George kind of sucks? And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, and that's a lot of years. Like, I don't know, man.
Here's what happened. I bet you
got to be pretty confident. You got to be pretty confident that Kawhi is also going to sign a similar deal.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Here's the thing, though. And here's why I kind of get what the Clippers are doing. Worst case scenario, you do not want to end up like the Houston Rockets, who gave up a bunch of assets to get Russell Westbrook, to then have him 1 year later be like, yo, I'm out. And then you end up getting – so they gave up all those assets, all those picks to get Russell Westbrook, to then have him leave. So now you have John Wall? That's horrible. So if you're the Clippers and you look at it and you say, hey, well, we have Paul George, and I've been steadfast on this. You can go back to the beginning of the bubble, to after the bubble, to I'm going to say it now, I'm going to say it going into the season, I'm going to say it during the season. Don't overreact to what happened in the bubble. And a lot of people are going to do that.
He shot a 3-pointer off the side of the backboard.
I know that.
It was bad.
It's almost like I'm going to put this in a different context for you that I think might be near and dear to your heart. It's like your man's Carson Wentz, right?
Oh.
Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be a superstar. He just has to not be Carson Wentz. All Paul George has to do. Follow me.
You got me fired up about Jalen Hurts now.
Not shoot it off the side of the glass and just be serviceable. Be able to hit an open shot when Kawhi kicks out to him because Kawhi's getting double teamed. That's all Paul George has to do. Carry them for a couple games during the year. Just don't be a complete no-show that he was in the playoffs for multiple games. And I know that we've seen that over and over again.
Multiple seasons he's done that in the playoffs.
But Kawhi will also be better. The team will also be better. I still think that the Clippers can go into this season and people are going to underestimate them. They're going to make all the jokes, and the Clippers are going to be really good. They're going to be really good.
We said when they got both of them that the last thing that they wanted to do would be holding the empty seat when the music stopped and for them to both leave after the 2 years. Mm-hmm. Now, at least, they've got Paul George for the conceivably next 5 years.
For sure.
Worst case scenario. So that I don't mind. But
hold on.
A lot of money.
No. Did you see that? I guess it was a clip or maybe one of the posts on IG of Paul George saying he wants to retire as a Clipper. And Dame Lillard.
Well, I saw that he said it in Indianapolis. I saw that he said it in Oklahoma City.
There's a post, of people saying that he said it in every other place that he's been, right?
Yeah.
He said the same thing. I want to retire as a Pacer. I want to retire as a member of the Thunder. Right? And in the comment section, people found that Dame Lillard wrote in the comments, and he wrote Al Capone. I thought that was incredible. So good. I'm like, and the funny thing was, at first I saw it. Like, I saw someone post it. Dame Lillard responds saying Al Capone. And I'm like, Al Capone? I don't get it. I'm like, oh, he's saying that's Cap. I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm like, I'm old. It's okay. I'm old. I don't speak the language as a kid, so it takes a second to click. But the first time I saw it, it said Al Capone. I'm like,
and you're
Al
like,
Capone? What's he talking about?
Did he evade his taxes? What did he? That was like, bro, I had to look up what the gritty was.
Yes.
So did Adam
Thielen.
I had to be like, new touchdown dance. And it was like, oh, the gritty. Okay, yeah, I see you. I see you.
Hey, that's why this podcast keeps us young, right? It keeps us young with all the trends and what's going on. But that was
honestly,
so funny.
My cultural touchdowns are so tied to the NBA. It's stupid. And so I was telling you when the James Harden put up the Instagram post of the emoji, and I was like, bro, that's my favorite emoji. Like, I'm so happy that he's using what my wife and I use to each other. Just that was the best. It was the best. So I'm just happy. My cultural touchdowns are not letting me down here.
Sticking with your man's James Harden, though, I'm going to get it so that I don't misquote it. But this makes me think that he's going to the Sixers. Of all the things that came out recently.
Is this
new?
This
was a couple days ago. Like maybe yesterday or the day before, actually. But I'll find it when I keep scrolling on my timeline. I guess so many things.
I didn't have a new Woj
this was 2
bomb.
days ago. No. This was 2 days ago. It's not a Woj bomb. If anything, it's a Meek bomb. As Meek Mill posted a picture of him and James Harden.
Oh,
it just said,
done. It's done.
It just said, no young men should have all that power. And I posted that, and it's one of those things where when it does go down, I'm going to point back to it and be like, yo, Meek told us this was going down. Like, people need to realize Meek and Michael Rubin are boys, right? Like,
Meek got the streets, man. He's got the streets in his hand.
No, but Meek and the Sixers owner are boys.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if there's whispers that, yo, we're going to try to get this done.
They picked him up out of jail to bring him to a Sixers game.
Hey, I'm aware of all this. I was trying to let everyone know. Like, we find out these things on Twitter before, like, the Woj bombs. Like, Cuffs the Legend broke the Westbrook trade hours before Woj and Shams did.
First of all, the best decision I've made in the last couple of months is to follow that guy. And
would I ever lead you astray?
But he's got some real hot takes that I'm like, I don't know. He's like blue cheese. He was talking about wings. He was talking about eating wings with ranch, and I was like,
I disagree.
I almost unfollowed him. I almost unfollowed him.
Straight hot takes. It is Twitter. It is NBA Twitter at its finest.
But if you're not following Castle Legend, you gotta remedy that immediately.
I'm so excited for this NBA season. It's going to be so much fun.
Oh.
I can't wait at all. Training camp is underway. Preseason games will be going on this weekend. That means the real games are right around the corner. Can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. And we'll be here to break down all the fun stuff.
We're going to get some season previews.
For sure. We'll be doing some season previews. We'll be breaking down all the news and notes and funny happenings in the NBA for sure. But as always, we wrap up each and every week on the podcast with a segment we call Ask on Blast. And normally it's just a little pop culture. It's just kind of whatever else is going on, whatever we want to talk about. But this week I thought it was pretty easy because December 4th was a famous date for certain people. It's the birthday of one Sean Carter. And Jay-Z turned 51 on December 4th, which just sounds so strange. And I don't want to go too long here because obviously people that know me and know the pod, follow me online, they know Jay's my guy. But when I say December 4th and Sean Carter is 51 years old, what does that mean to you, Mr. Andrew Webster?
It means I'm old as hell, man. It really does. I was just, it was December 4th. I was on Twitter and it was like, which of these albums, like if you only had to keep 2 of these Jay-Z albums, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, okay, like each one is such a point in my life. Like it's like I've been listening to them since fucking junior high.
Yeah.
And it's like every album, like there are memories tied to each one. Mm-hmm. Whether the album was good or not. Some of them were terrible. Like, let's not front. Like Jay didn't have only classics. So
true.
even the bad ones, they connect to memories of where I was and who I was at that time. So sure. It's just such a long, storied career. And then the other thing that I love so much about Hove is honestly, when I was at the top of my love of the rock was when he was kind of making that conglomeration of all those guys. Yeah. And it was like putting on Bleak, putting on Siegel, putting on Free, putting on PD Crack, putting on all these guys. And then the way that they would intermingle with each other. And then it almost got like Icarus, right? It got too close to the sun and tried to bring in Dipset and it just kind of collapsed. It's such an interesting story of a career that Kanye. How do I forget? Like, how did I forget? Birthing Kanye into the world. It's just such an interesting and storied career. I was talking online the other day of, there's one music documentary that I want to see, and I know I've brought this guy up a ton, but like the definitive like Wu-Tang documentary for MF Doom would be the coolest thing ever, just because he's kind of been this figure in rap music, both mainstream and underground for so long. But the real one, like the one that you're going to get a 2-3-2-hour part documentary is going to be the Hove story, and it's going to be awesome, right? Like that's going to be a great documentary.
I wonder when that gets done, right? Like that's super interesting to me. I wonder when that gets done. That's super interesting. And you're right. I mean, because to me, like, Jay's older than us, obviously, but I feel the same as you. Like I grew up with him, or like he raised me. And I don't say that as like hyperbole. Like if you know me, you kind of know the story then, right? And I don't know. I guess to me, it's kind of like I'm not where I'm at if not for Jay, right? Like I'm not trying to gas, I'm not whatever, but like I'm trying to build what I'm building, trying to do what I do, trying to get to where I got to, all that stuff. And even just where I'm at now, I'm not there without Jay. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but it's kind of one of those, if you know type things, right? Yeah, it's an inspiration. It's a storytelling. It's the first time, I guess, like as a young person growing up, having someone explain your surroundings to you in such crystal clear pictures and just getting you to understand your surroundings, but also how to get through. And the fact that it wasn't about you selling drugs or shooting people or whatever. It's about you doing what you have to do as the individual to get through your circumstance, right? But I don't even want to get too deep into that because I feel like I'm that old now. And as we get older, we realize at this stage, I don't even try to explain it to people that much anymore. Because it's kind of like if you're in the age group, and if you're a little older or a little younger, you don't get it. But if you're in that right sweet spot, you totally get it. And it's kind of like a hat tip when you meet someone else who does get it, right? I'm wearing the One of One On Blast hoodie right now. What would Hova do, right? And it's funny. I remember I was wearing this. I was out at a bar. It was after a Jays game. I was out at a bar, and I remember this group of girls like stopped me as we walked out of the spot. This group of girls stopped me, and the one girl was like, "Oh, who's Hova?" And I started laughing, right? And before I could even say anything, her friend's like, "Shut up, you idiot. Of course it's Jay-Z. Like, how do you know who Jay-Z is?" And I'm like laughing my ass off at this point, right? And I'm just like, Beyonce's husband. And she was like, "Honestly, I love how you just described him as Beyonce's husband. Like, that's so beautiful." I'm like, all right, it's time for me to go. Whatever's happening right now, this is time to go. Like, this is just a side, time to go. But what I mean by that is it's just like, it's a generational thing, and it means so much to certain people, and either you know or you don't know. But we grew up in a generation in which there's a generation that was raised by Jay, and that's a specific group of people. It's an age group, and it just hits different. And now at this stage, it's clear to me, if you know, if you put on Can I Live and you get that, if you bump Reasonable and you get that, same way you bump Blueprint. Like, I remember the high school house party that I was at when we just ran Blueprint on repeat over and over and over again. And my boy David Beveridge, we went to the HMV at Yonge and Eglinton to get it on the day it came out. We remember all of this stuff. It just hits different. So I don't think I could have went without saying something about the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Carter. But yeah, definitely. There's no way I could have a platform and not speak on the man's birthday. December 4th is beautiful. Beautiful song.
So just before we get out of here, okay, there was something that I want to – do you have Amazon Prime?
No.
Okay. I don't know how we're going to see these. I've got Amazon. I might give you my password just because there's
okay.
Do you know who Steve McQueen is? Not the old action movie star, but the director, the film director.
Yes.
He did 12 Years a Slave. He did Shane. He's got this 5-movie series on Amazon Prime called Small Acts. And it's about the West Indian experience in London, England in the 60s. I think it's 5. So it's the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. 5 movies that take a look at West Indian immigrant life in London. And the one about the 60s and one about the 70s. The one about the 60s is called Mangrove, and the one about the 70s is called Lover's Rock. Mangrove is long, Lover's Rock is short, okay? I've been put on, these have been recommended to me.
Okay.
The music in them is supposed to be unbelievable. And it's supposed to be, almost like historical fiction of what was happening in England. I'm going to check these movies out, and I will report back to you because these are supposed to be stellar. And I think that in the time that we're living in, it's definitely something we're going to check out and report back to the pod about to see whether I give them my recommendation or not as well.
I like it. On Blast recommendations. I like it. I like it a lot. That's what we do here. We do that. We talk about Jay. We talk about ball. And the league we love, the NBA, so much. Webby,
so
man,
close.
It's
so close. It's so close to being back.
Thanks so much, as always. This was so much fun, man. It's been a busy week, despite the fact that I'm supposed to be on vacation. But, what's a vacation mean?
The hardest working guy. You had a pod on Wednesday with the challenge. You had a pod earlier today for the football. And now you're doing this one. Hardest working man in show business.
I went on your boy's pod. He told me to shout you out. The Confederacy of Dunks.
Great dudes.
Freddie. Yes.
Yeah, man. Yes. That's awesome. Big shout out to Confederate. Yeah, they're really nice guys, man. They're really they listen to this show too, man.
Yeah, really good dudes. It's been a busy week for sure, but a fun week because we're talking basketball, talking sports. Where else would you rather be? Where else would you rather be? My dude, where can the people find you to
let's all
about you dreaming of getting James Harden?
You can sit and watch the Eagles-Saints Jalen Hurts game. I'm just saying, we're going to cover. Okay, it's 8.5. We're going to cover. Just Jalen Hurts. I just watched his every drop back he had against the Green Bay Packers. You know the big difference is? He's not Carson Wentz. Okay? So Sunday, hit me up on Instagram, on Twitter. It's the same, at awebster84.
I like it, my dude. I like it. You can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And of course, on Blast Podcast Network, we got a bunch of stuff going on, including the Ball on Blast podcast. Busy season. The challenge is back, as Webby mentioned. So we got that podcast going. You killed it. That's up and running. We got a bunch of episodes up already. We got a preview of the season. We got a first episode recap.
Oh, Fessy, what are you doing?
We got our interview with my girl, Ashley, which was awesome. Check that out if you haven't. And also, football season's still kicking, and we're just trying to win people some money. That's what we're trying to do, handing out winners. I mean, we're on the Rams tonight.
You were on the Rams.
We're on the Rams tonight. So
good. That was easy money.
Win people some money, right? That's all we're trying to do out here. And it's been so much fun doing all these things here. And I close each and every podcast because it's the most true statements from the wise words of the aforementioned Meek Mill, who really did used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is the Ball on Blast podcast, as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.
Peace.
This is Ball on Blast, part of the On Blast Podcast Network, available on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. If you like it, then subscribe and tell your friends. Holla.
On blast.